Happy Friday, everyone. We're excited to have you with us this morning. We're going to go through some details around the RFP, and then Sarah and Laura will talk through the application portal and take you through the portal question by question so that you can get a feel for what to expect, and we can answer any questions you have with the time remaining. So we're really excited to connect with you. If we don't get to your question today, always remember that you can reach us at apply@oneohiofoundation.com, and you can visit our website, oneohiofoundation.com/grants. But if you just go to our homepage, there's a grants tab that will get you to the same location where we will house all the information we are sharing today. Before we jump into some of the specifics around the RFP, I wanted to just note that the webinar will be recorded, and this recording will be available next week for you to rewatch in case you missed a part and want to revisit, along with the slides that'll be shared. Questions from today should be included in the Q&A box that we have at the bottom of your screen. We will get to those not only by typing responses in there, we also will have that Q&A portion at the end where you can ask, we'll continue to answer your questions here live. Just a note that the scenarios in this grant portal training are just that. They're scenarios of, options of many that could come from the process. There isn't anything that we present today doesn't recommend the scenario that we would like to see. Is just one option of many that are available as you go through the questionnaire in the grant portal in the application. I want you to also finally note that this is a competitive grant process, and so we are limited on any specific information we can provide to you and your organization. We hope that this information we share today will give you the opportunity to put your best foot forward in the application, and technical assistance and general questions will be answered, but anything specific to your program type or how you should write, we would not be able to answer today. So before we talk a little bit about the grants process, I want to tell you some about us. We are a private nonprofit organization, specifically a foundation in Ohio, and we are excited to partner with you as that nonprofit and not the state. We are not a state organization. We are not a state government entity, but we really have that important public mission, and we act with transparency as a nonprofit. When we think about who we are established through what we call the One Ohio Memorandum of Understanding. That document is on our website if those of you are curious to learn more about this, but in it, it stated that 55% of all funds that come to the state of Ohio will come to the One Ohio Foundation. And so we are really focused on that 55% today. The discussion, this RFP, is focused on that 55%, not to be confused with the 30% that went directly to communities. So you may have heard your commissioners, your local governments discussing opportunities at the local level. That does not, anything we say today does not apply to that 30% or vice versa. And then finally, 15% of all funds went to the state of Ohio. Again, we are not talking about that bucket as well. We're just speaking on that 55%. Also in that MOU is a detailed description of our 19 regions. Our goal with this process and who we are as a foundation is to partner with communities. And the way we're doing that is splitting the state up into 19 regions, focused on making sure community needs are met and the unique needs of communities are met. And so we're really excited, and we'll talk more about those 19 regions here in a moment. Overall, our nonprofit board is made up of 29 members. They represent individuals from across the state with a variety of different backgrounds, lived experience, family experience, clinical experience, and so much more. please check out our website to learn more about who governs our 29 member board and where they're from across the state. And with you today is many of the folks that are on our team. We now have 6 members of the One Ohio team, but this is the team in front of you that will be working really closely on the grants process, and particularly our grants manager, Laura Spires, who you'll hear from in a moment. Our mission is really important to us, and we really want to partner with you through this grant process to end the opioid epidemic and prevent its reoccurrence, and do so much more. We know that substance use disorders, mental health, trauma, social determinants of health are all kind of a part of this crisis, and so we are looking forward to really addressing those needs in this application process, and we'll talk more about what that means here in a moment. But from an overall perspective, we really exist to do 3 things as a foundation. We want to promote the health and safety of Ohioans in the ways that we just talked about: physical health, behavioral health, substance use disorders, mental health, all the things that encompass us living well. We want to be promoters of that. And when we identify opportunities for growth in our state, we want to be advocates with you. We want to be working with our state and federal governments to address rules, update rules as needed, to really support the work that we're trying to do to improve outcomes for Ohioans. And then finally, and most importantly for today, we are a funder. And so we are excited to launch our first grant round. We're going to spend the rest of the time really talking about what our first grant round means. But before we get into that, I do want to make sure to mention that not only is this our first grant round, we're going to learn a lot from this grant round. And really there will be many more opportunities. So if we don't get a chance to partner this time, know that we are already thinking about what our next rounds of funding will look like. And they may look different from this, but we really are excited to learn from this experience with you, and then continue to grow and build upon our partnership as a funder across the state of Ohio. So with that, I'm going to jump right into the 6 steps that are related to our grant award process, this grant round, and really kind of hit on each of them one by one before I turn it over to Sarah and Laura to walk through the application itself. The first part has already begun, and many of you have been in our system. We have enjoyed getting to know your organizations. This part, the registration, started last month, March 4th, and many of you have gotten in there and entered in your information to give us a good idea of who you serve, what impact area you have, your mission, and some of the details about where your address is and primary contact. So thank you for that. We have been reviewing that information, and unless you hear from us, assume that you are good to go right into that step 2. So this is step 1. Go right into step 2 after you register, to start the application process. But before we jump into that process in more detail, I wanted to spend a minute talking about eligibility. For those of you who haven't registered and seen some of this information, one of the things that was important to our board and is reflected in this RFP is we wanted to cast a pretty wide net around who is eligible this first grant round. So for us, that means nonprofit organizations are eligible, for-profit organizations are eligible, and government entities are eligible. So we're really excited to connect with you. What that does mean, though, that individual, maybe sole proprietor or sole proprietors perhaps, are not eligible in this round. You have to have those tax statuses that relate to one of these groups, an EIN that relates to one of these groups, to work with us in this grant round. And so I just wanted to make sure to point that out. As we discussed, and many of you may know, our grant application portal opened April 2nd. Hopefully you've been able to at least get in there, click around, and see kind of how it feels, what it looks like. If not, don't worry, you still have the opportunity to do so. The registration window did not close when this portion of the application process opened. The first step in our application process is to register. The second step is to then get in the application and complete it. And we'll talk more about that today. The deadline to submit this application is May 3rd, and we'll kind of keep revisiting that because that's an important piece to make sure you get that in at that deadline, at or before that deadline. One of the things that is in our MOU that I talked about earlier and is in every settlement agreement that Ohio has signed is an alignment with abatement strategies and approved purposes. And so I want to spend a minute talking about what that means. This is the actual language from our settlement agreement, from our MOU that speaks to what approved purposes are and really focuses our efforts on evidence-based, forward-looking strategies and kind of outlines a number of different points to begin with, and then goes into further detail about what that means. And so if you haven't had a chance, take a look at the full written version of this, but for your convenience, we've tried to summarize what that means in the buckets that you see here in front of you today. And so you'll see things like treatment and healthcare services, prevention, harm reduction, criminal legal system. Two that I want to make sure to emphasize today is one is the fact that you'll see that last bucket, if you will, number 11 in the corner is other. There could be something that we haven't thought of here in Ohio yet, haven't tried, that doesn't quite fit neatly in one of these buckets. Please feel free to use the other category if you don't feel like your application fits neatly in one of these buckets. You do have to pick one bucket as your primary bucket. If that we're going to go with that bucket phrasing, or one of these strategies as your primary strategy. But there will be pieces in the application that allow for you to select other items that you may hit along the way. So maybe you offer services to support minority communities or folks that are veterans. Whatever those unique factors of your program, there are opportunities to select those different things within the application. The second strategy that I want to talk a little bit more about is infrastructure, just to make sure that folks know that not only is this capital improvements like bricks and mortar, but this is also the place where you would identify opportunities for things like IT infrastructure. Maybe you need to purchase a van for your programming to get folks back and forth. This is a good spot to put those items as well. Another important piece to our MOU and what was in those settlement agreements, and even in that improved purposes definition, is evidence-based. And I know that for some, this may be a topic that is, more of a challenge to really understand what we mean by that. And so to support that work, we have been provided, and what's right here on the screen is the actual question from the from the application that lists out the 5 different types of evidence that we're recognizing in our application process this round. That includes evidence-based, evidence-informed, practice-based evidence, promising practice, and innovation. I want to highlight that innovation because the other 4 buckets are really the different types of evidence-based. That 5th bucket is perhaps the bucket where you could put something that hasn't been tried. One second. Pardon me. All right. Maybe you put something that hasn't been tried. So innovation is a place where you talk about in your example there, something that, or maybe you detail why this doesn't exist today and why you think it needs to exist, and maybe share some of the outcomes that you think you'll see, or maybe you have seen as you work to expand or innovate your program. To support this even further, we have created a quick guide to supporting the evidence base. requirement for your use on our website. And so this is just a screenshot of that. It goes further to define each of those 5 buckets to make sure that folks understand what we mean when we say those words. And then it also provides a compendium of evidence. This is not an exhaustive list of all compendiums that are out there, but just a few that we thought were well done that could support the questions around the evidence base that we wanted to make sure you knew about. Now, although so much of our funding is flexible, and us being a foundation is really a pivotal point in that flexibility to make sure that we can offer support for programs that may not be found in other places. And we hope to be that value for all of you in your programming. There are still some unallowable expenses. And so we wanted to make sure we highlighted this list that kind of details the different things the funds cannot be used for or have limited use for. And so things like costs for fundraising events, alcoholic beverages, costs that were incurred prior to the grant period. We really need to be focusing on future costs and not looking back in this application. Legal costs for opiate litigation expenses. This is specific to opiate litigation expenses. So if you are a legal aid program or you want to provide some criminal legal justice system support for your clients, that is still allowable. We are just talking in terms of legal services, those expenses around the court costs around the opioid settlement itself, and that comes straight from the settlement agreement. Other things like costs for sub grants, sub awards will be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. So maybe you have a collaborative partnership, you all are collaborating to create an application. That application will have a lead applicant, which will likely be one of you. And then if you do have those sub grantees that are a part of that collaborative process, that is okay, but we will be taking a look at those, really trying to avoid any scenarios where the foundation is giving an entity money that then is having a competitive grant process at their level to then reallocate the funds again. It's really the cusp of, or the focus of this point that we are trying to make, but we will be reviewing those on a case-by-case basis in case there's other things that we haven't thought of that come up. And then we'll continue to review for all of these unallowable costs. The other place where you might see some limitations is we will be supporting costs for direct costs. And so these costs must be for newer expanded programs and services, and applicants cannot use foundation funds to replace, divert, or supplant current funds for past or current expenditures. So we wanted to make sure to say that out loud. Costs directly attributed to the delivery of the proposed strategy are referred to as direct costs. So what does it take to run this program, whether that be a new staff person, and that staff person is a peer supporter who is going to be doing XYZ service for you, that whole program is new, that's a direct cost. We can only fund up to 10% of the grant to cover new or expanded administrative costs associated with implementing the proposal. So yeah, we talked about that peer supporter. Perhaps in this example, they're doing that new program. Any HR related costs of hiring that peer supporter and other kind of fixed costs around just general operations, those are capped at 10%. And so we really will be looking for those, and we'll be learning through this process how that goes. So just in general, as we summarize the application, we will be looking to provide 51 million, a little over 51 million, as you see here. There are no award ceilings. However, I want you to hold that thought when we start talking about the region-specific information. There is the ability for projects to be 12, 24, or 36 months. And then finally, there are no match requirements related to these funds at this time or in this round. But I asked you to hold that thought around how much to ask for in the award maximums, because I really want to make sure that you're using the context of the region you are applying for to really identify the number you're asking for. And so, as an example, if you are applying for, let's just say, Region 5, which is here, they have a little over $1 million in their region. And so I wouldn't want to ask Region 5 for $2 million. I would really want to take into consideration how much the region has in their bank account and think about the fact that they will likely want to award multiple applications in this grant round, and really be thoughtful about that request as it pertains to what they are dealing with their funding. I want to also say that this will not be the last time that we will be awarding funds. And so, if we have those big ideas, feel free to include those big ideas. We like to see those big ideas. And the regions will have, this opportunity and future opportunities to think through those. If the idea is, or the grant application is one for, let's just say, 2 years or 3 years, the regions will have to award the full amount in this year. So let's just use that as an example. You are an organization and you are requesting $100,000 a year for 3 years. The award in this grant cycle would be for $300,000. And then you would work with us over the next 3 years to get those yearly allocations. And we'll talk more about that grant agreement and payment processing and things in a little bit. The other piece of information that I want you to use as context as you think about how to apply and who you're going to apply to in the regions is the regional priorities. And this is in the application, it's in the RFP. The RFP details all 19 regions. We only could fit 8 on the screen, so just that caveat. But each region has identified whether or not they wanted to set abatement strategy priorities. And so great examples of kind of some of the different things that regions are really prioritizing is listed on the screen. So for example, Region 1, Franklin County, has said that they are open to all ideas and they really want to see all ideas related to abatement strategies in this funding cycle. Region 2 is really focused on 4 buckets. So they want to see treatment and healthcare services, the programs around the criminal legal system, recovery supports, and prevention. And so when they think about and look at their slate of applicants, know that they will likely give more weighting to those that align with their funding priorities. However, they will look at every application that comes in. And so if you have something around harm reduction or support for impacted children and families, please feel free to still apply. And they will look at everything that comes in. And in case they miss something, or maybe there's an idea that you all have that they hadn't thought of, they can always award to those organizations as well. We talked a little bit about this, but I want to make sure to hit that the deadline to submit is on Friday, May 3rd at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. There is no exceptions to this. Applications must be received on or before that date. I would recommend that we not wait till that last day, that last minute, just in case you run into any submission issues. We really want to make sure that you can get this in on time. It is the responsibility of the applicant to ensure that its application is received via the One Ohio Grant Portal on or before the due date and time. If you have trouble with this, we are around to help you. Apply at oneohiofoundation.com. we have that program and that email watched by all of us that are on the line that you see here. We will be triaging and answering any questions you have as soon as possible. Once the applications are submitted, and once you guys hit that submit button before May 3rd, the process next step is to go to or go up for regional review. And so we will be sorting the applications and getting them over to each region to review is as quickly as we can, in hopes to award the first funds by as early as July. We could see some funds going out as early as July. If you want to know more about who's in your region and what they've been talking about as they talk about those priorities, what kind of priorities are they thinking about, or maybe perhaps, just wanting to know when their next meetings are, I am flashing screenshots from our website. Each region's information that we have at this time is up on the website for you to take a look. Next, we take this to, once the regions review, the organizations that have been recommended by the regions, then go to the expert panel. The expert panel's job in support of the foundation is really twofold. They focus on, does the application meet the abatement strategies, aka the approved purposes that have to be met, are related to our settlement agreement, making sure that you guys are hitting one of those 10 or 11 buckets. Remember, treatment and healthcare, prevention, harm reduction, recovery supports. They're going to make sure that it aligns. The second thing that they do is look at those 2 or 3 evidence-based questions that you'll respond to in the application. They are going to be the ones alongside the regional reviewers that are reading those documents that you're uploading around the evidence base of your project. From there, with the approval of the expert panel and those kind of things, those boxes all checked, the application will then go before the grants review committee and then up to the board for allocation approval, so that we can get approval from our board to spend the funds as recommended by the regions. Finally, once it kind of goes through that process, and we look forward to seeing you on the other end of this, once our board approves, we will be working directly with you to establish a grant agreement. The grant agreements are not between applicants and the regions. The grant agreements are between the One Ohio Foundation team that you see here on the line, the foundation itself, and the applicant, or the grant, at that point, the grantee. And so we will be sending direct checks to your organizations. We will work through reporting requirements. There will be reporting requirements, and we will train you on how to use our system and really make sure that that system is at least administratively burdensome as possible, and kind of work through payment structures with each of you on an individual basis. There will be the opportunity for initial payments to get things started in the community. And then we also have the ability, depending on the type of organization you are, to do things on a reimbursement basis and so many other things. And so we'll be working with you all on an individual basis. There is no one size fits all because of the different types of organizations that are applying to us. We will be addressing those at a grant agreement level. So with that, I will stop talking and turn it over to Sarah and Laura, who will walk you through the application and each of the questions.
Hello, everyone. I'm Laura Spires. I'm the grants manager at One Ohio. Sarah is just pulling up the application, and the two of us are just going to walk you through it step by step to see what is expected. Sarah, can you scroll to the top really quick? I just want to give a quick overview of the portal itself. You can see in progress. That's where you'll find all of your saved drafts, Submitted will show you what you've already sent over to us. Once you've submitted, you can't make any edits or changes, so please be aware of that. Opportunities is where you would go to create another grant application if you're submitting more than one. Both the link to create your organization registration and your grant application, those are both found under opportunities. So just a quick overview of how the portal looks. And then this first question you're going to see on the application is really verifying that you have submitted your organization registration. So it's going to pull from your registration what you listed as your organization type, and your options are to select either looks correct, which means that you have successfully submitted your organization registration, or is blank, which just means that we're missing that information. So if you do select is blank, can we show what that looks like, Sarah? Thank you. So that's just going to give you a notification that you've skipped over the organization registration straight to the application. So we're going to ask you to go back and complete step 1, the organization. You can either click on that link or find it under opportunities. But we'll assume for today's purposes that you've already completed that organization registration. There is a training video about that on our website. So please look there if you're having any questions about that. So your organization registration is all correct. You'll put correct and go to the next slide. Then first question you're going to see is the mailing address the same as the service location for this proposal? So perhaps your physical offices are not in the same location as where you're providing services, in which case you'd hit no, and you can put in your information about where the service takes place. Or if it is the same, then you'll simply select yes. Here we're going to ask for the title of your project or program. And next is the narrative description of that project. And this, an important note about this section is that should you be awarded, this description of your project will be made publicly available. So you want to make sure that you feel really good about everything contained within this section. And next, you'll be able to give us some background about your organization, your qualifications, your experience working in this space. Tell us why your organization is a good fit for this grant funding. Here you can see our regional map of Ohio. So it's going to ask, are you intending to apply for more than one region? So you'll select yes or no. If you select no, it'll just pop you onto the next question. Oh, sorry, I flip-flopped that. Yes will pop you onto the next question. And if you select that you are going to apply in multiple regions, it's just asking you to confirm for us that you know you must apply in each region. So if you're applying in region 1 and 18, each of those regions needs a separate application. And that application, like budget and outcomes, should be specific to the region. So it is possible that one region may approve your project while another may not. So please just be aware of that when you're applying to multiple regions. So there you can select which region you're applying to. There's also a list breakdown of that map, and you can select which county you're working in. You do not have to serve every county in a region to be considered. We understand that some projects may not touch the whole region, and that is okay. So you're just going to indicate for us here which county you are working in. Next, we have a chart of the regional funding priorities, so you can find your region and see if they have indicated any priorities. Every region is accepting applications for all abatement strategies. So even if they've listed a funding priority, you're still welcome to apply under a different abatement strategy, but just know that they've identified what they're most looking for, what they're most interested in funding. So there is that information. And here below, we have the definition of all of those abatement strategies. So please review this, and we'll ask you to select one that you are applying under. And then if you do select infrastructure, you will get additional questions to give us more details about your infrastructure request. So you'll get some additional pop-up boxes here for that selection. Some more details. And the next two boxes here are asking you to select some descriptive tags for your project. This is really to help us better understand what what areas you're working in and to better, describe and really get a good scope of your project. So please select as many as apply. And if none of them fit, feel free to check none of below. It's entirely possible that you aren't working with these specific tags, and that's okay. The next section is about your organization's license, certifications, and accreditations to provide this project. So you do have the option to select no, that you don't have those certifications, in which case you'll be prompted to just give us some information about why you are not. Perhaps you're seeking funding, you're in the process of doing that. So that's all okay. Just give us an explanation for your situation. If you select yes, you'll be given a box to upload a documentation of that certification. You can only upload one PDF at a time. So you can see below that you have the option to upload additional documents. If you have many certifications to upload, it might be easier to create those into one PDF and then upload one. So that's up to you based on how many documents you need to share with us. Next, we have the anticipated start date of your program. So please let us know when you would anticipate beginning the work. We understand that some of you, that start date really depends on when funding is going to be awarded to you. We are awarding funding on a rolling basis, so we don't have a specific date that we can give you for that. So make your best guess about the start date. And if we need to adjust those start dates, we'll do that during the grant agreement phase. So don't worry if we miss your start date, it's okay, we can adjust that later. And then you will be selecting the proposed length of your project. And then please keep in mind that your grant payments and your reporting schedule are all going to attach to whatever time frame that you select. Here we have some definitions of how we'd like you to categorize your project, if it is new, expanded, enhanced, reinstated, and continued. And you can see the longer definitions there for what we mean by those words. And here you'll have the option to pick which it is. If you do select continuation, please note that you're going to get an additional box asking you to explain to us how this request is not supplanting current funding. Because remember, we're really looking to fund new initiatives, new projects, new costs. So just explain to us what about this request is going to be different from how you're already doing the project. Okay, and I'm going to pass it over to Sarah to talk you through our evidence-based section.
Thank you, Laura. Good afternoon, everyone. So after you have completed the first page of the application, you will talk about the evidence basis of your proposed project or program. We include in here definitions of the different type of evidence base that is allowed, a link to the evidence-based compendium that is on our website. Also want to point out that on Monday at 9 a.m., this coming Monday, April 15th, we will have another one of our Impact Academy webinars focused on the evidence-based requirements. So if you have questions about that, I would really encourage you to tune in. As always, that will be recorded and put on our website along with the slide deck. So if you can't join live, you can watch it there. Registration for that is up on our website on the events page. So for this question, we ask you to describe the evidence base of your proposed project or program. And the options you get are going to be these 5 right here that we have definitions for them. So if you select one of the top 4, let's go with promising practice, you will be asked to upload a document summarizing, I want to stress that word, summarizing the research that supports the evidence base of your proposed project or program. So you will upload a document, 12-point font, 1-inch margins, no more than 2 pages. Brevity is great here. Summarize, because there might be a lot of these that we have to read. So this is your chance to, show us your summarization skills. Citations do not count against the page total. But in this summary document, again, this is your opportunity to tell the grant reviewers and the expert panel what evidence supports what you're doing. So as part of this, highlight any links, clinical trials, studies, things like that support what you're doing. how the research aligns with your goals and target population, any evidence supporting not only what you are proposing to do, but your target population. Talk about all of that, if it exists for what you're doing. Perhaps you have really great, maybe you have your own program evaluation data, or you've been tracking your own outcomes. This is your chance to really tell us, if there isn't research out there that kind of already supports what you're doing, how do you know that what you're doing is working? What are you seeing? What are the outcomes you've been getting? This is your chance to tell us, how do you know what you're doing is working? And if you can, back it up with supporting links, research, literature. If you were to select innovation, again, we have a definition for that. You will also upload a document, again, summarizing the evidence that supports your proposed innovation. So be sure to talk about in that summary document, why is this needed? The rationale to support it, how this is going to make a difference. So perhaps with your innovation, maybe you're taking something that exists in another field, or maybe it's been documented to work with a certain population. Why do you think it will work with what you're proposing to do? Again, maybe this is some of your own data that you have to show this. So innovation is absolutely encouraged, but we just need to know, how do you think it's going to work? What's the rationale? What in the literature, what already exists that leads you to believe that this is going to have a difference and have the outcome that you say it's going to have? Again, 12-point font, 1-inch margins, no more than 2 pages. Citations do not count against page totals. And for your citations, it could be, formal APA style. It could be links that you include. It could be the DOI links. So this is your chance. Summarize, tell us about the research, the evidence that supports what you're doing. Because this is a requirement in the Memorandum of Understanding that grants made by the foundation be for things that are evidence-based. So we want to really make sure folks feel supported here. That's why we created the evidence-based quick guide and are doing the Impact Academy webinar. So please reach out if you have questions about this. And for both of these, you will upload a document, and then you can move on to the next section. So the third part of the application is about the impact. So you will provide a summary, response summary of the data and its source that justifies the need for this project or program. So we give a little example, according to the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration, 10% of Ohioans, fill in the blank. So you can just hit these as sentences. You could make a paragraph. You have the freedom to do what you want, but summarize the data and its source that justifies the need for this project or program. You'll tell us how many people you plan to serve with the proposed project or program. And then tell us if you're planning to work with any special population. And this might be not applicable. Maybe you're working with everybody. Or maybe you have a special focus. Maybe this is a women-specific program. If it's other, you'll have the option to specify what the other population is. And then you'll move on to select what age group. Again, it might not be an age-specific program, but if it is, you can tell us that, and you can select as many as you want. And then, how does your organization address diversity, equity, and inclusion? This is your opportunity to tell us that. If this is not applicable to your organization, you will enter that here, but how are you addressing diversity, equity, and inclusion? And then how are you incorporating that into your outreach and engagement goals of your organization and this proposed project? Again, if it's not applicable, you can enter that. Otherwise, enter the engagement goals and how you're including diversity, equity, inclusion into that. And then you'll have kind of another opportunity to summarize and detail what you're doing, the services you're providing, the delivery method, any assessments you plan to conduct, and how you're going to evaluate what you're doing. And then we give you an outcomes chart. So we provide definitions of what we're looking for when we say, you know, impact measure, data source, proposed outcome, and then give examples. And then you have your table below where you will enter your proposed outcomes for the project. You can add more rows as needed. If you don't need as many, you can delete them, but you'll just fill these out with the information relevant to your project. And then if you have any partners or other organizations that are going to be involved, you can select yes and then describe that. How are you partnering with others? What does that look like? I know someone asked in the chat, you know, what if you already have an MOU? If you already have, you know, a formalized agreement, this is your opportunity to talk about that and how you're collaborating and working with others. If you selected yes, that you do have partners, you're working with others, we'll ask if you are the lead applicant. If you're not, we ask that the lead applicant be the one to submit an application so that we just have one for the proposed project and you can collaborate on a joint application. We have all of the application questions on our website, and you can print blank of the application in the grant portal. So you could collaborate on a Word document outside of here. But if you don't have any other partners, you just select no and you can move on.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in and go over our budget section. We have lots of information at the top here, so please do read all of this and familiarize yourself with our unallowable cost and really how we want you to describe your budget. There's good information here. There we go. Again, take a look at those unallowable costs. Make sure you understand if your project is eligible to receive funding or if the things you're requesting in your budget are eligible. You can see all of that there. And here again, we have the regional funding table, which will show you how much is available in each region. So you want to make sure that your request makes sense within that dollar amount. So you're not requesting more money than a region has. They obviously wouldn't be able to fund that request. So you can see that information right here. And you'll enter the total amount of your grant request. And then below, you'll have the opportunity to break down that total amount and show us where it's all going. We have these provided categories for you and the opportunity to give us some information in the description box. You can also tell us what other funds might be going towards this project. Perhaps you have another partner that is providing funding. Perhaps it's funding from within your own organization. You can let us know about that in the other funds. And an important thing to note is this admin support box at the bottom. It's going to auto populate for you below here the admin support percentage. So you want to make sure that your support percentage is below 10%. So if we see here, 21%, well, then you need to go in and adjust your budget because we are only allowing for 10% of those administrative costs to be funded. So please keep an eye on that box there. And then if applicable, please tell us where the other funds are coming from. If those funds are secured or not, maybe you have another application in progress that you're waiting to hear from. Please just let us know any circumstances like that that might apply to any funding attached to this project. Then here you can put the narrative for your budget. So any additional details that can help us understand what the money will be used for. And then the next box will be, how are you going to monitor and manage those grant funds? What are your processes in place to make sure that this funding is used for the appropriate purposes? And the next question is about how you plan to continue. Are you planning to continue the project after your grant period ends? So if you select yes, please let us know how you'll be sustaining those services after the One Ohio funding runs out. We're just interested to know if this project will continue on after the grant period.
And then the final page is around confidentiality and then submission. So we do ask if you believe your application contains trade or business secrets and if you would be requesting an exemption for confidentiality. You know, this is really getting at information in your grant application that would require a non-disclosure agreement. You know, this is you know, really getting to specific business trade secrets that only you can know. And the foundation reserves the right to make these determinations, but really think about things that are requiring an NDA. You have some sort of invention, or, you know, it's the formula for something that for some reason is in your grant application. But we did want to put it here because we are encouraging innovation and we don't know what we may get. So we give a little description here of what we mean by this and what that process would be. So if you think that your application contains this, and if you are requesting an exemption, you will provide us that information. Otherwise, you will just be prompted to sign. And you are all done. So you'll hit submit and then let this spin. It's saving. Keep this window open, and then you will receive the application submission confirmation page. Just give it a minute. And then you also get an email confirming that your application was received. This is still going. I do have a lot open on my computer right now. So here we go. Just be patient if you get that spinning, it's doing its thing. But as you can see, it was successfully submitted, and I will have an email in my inbox that my test application was submitted successfully. So with that, I will turn it back over to Alicia.
Awesome. We have a ton of questions rolling in. Thank you all for putting those questions in the Q&A. We'll use the remaining amount of our time to really get to those. Up first is questions about our scoring rubric and when it will be available. I want to say that a date, but I do not have a date when that scoring rubric will be available. It is coming soon. However, if you would like to join our grant committee meeting that is coming up, Sarah, maybe you can tell me the date for that because I don't have it off the top of my head. We have been discussing in depth the scoring rubric, and that scoring rubric is shared during those meetings. So if you don't, if you'd like to join us, then as soon as it is approved by our committee, it will be posted. And so we are working in the coming days on that. The next piece, I think, was around the questions I had flashed quickly, and I'll share my screen to share it again. The evidence-based quick guide. What I want to share that you did not have to kind of write that down quick. I know I flashed it fast, but when it comes to the evidence-based quick guide that I'm going to share on my screen here in a second, this whole document and all of these links are clickable and on our website. And so if you go to our website, you can find this information right there for your use. So I will stop sharing. Eligible entities. I saw a theme around who's eligible in this process, and it was questions around, you know, are you eligible based on I provide this type of service or that type of service? What I will say is we do not have eligibility based off of service type. If you are a nonprofit, for-profit, or government entity, you are eligible. And it really will be up to you as the applicant to talk about the services you provide and how they relate to this population that we're proposing to serve, those individuals and families who are struggling with substance use disorders, co-occurring mental illness, and really meeting those abatement strategies and the people that are meant to be served by those abatement strategies. So take a look at our RFP, take a look at the MOU to get more context there, but eligibility is based on nonprofit, for-profit, and government entity. There's also no eligibility restrictions around whether or around how long you've been in business. And so we will know that information by when we pull your EIN and other state-related documents. However, there are no minimum amounts of time that you have to be in business to be a part of the One Ohio process. I will say though too as Sarah and Laura shared, there are accreditation, licensure, and certification questions in the document. And so depending on the type of organization and your experience, you'll have to detail where you are in that process. Of course, if you're asking for support for a service that needs to be provided by a licensed or accredited organization, we're going to expect to see that in the process as well. There were some questions about new employees, indirect costs, direct costs. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that. From our perspective, and this is easier said than done, and so we'll be working with you through this grant process. But if you need to hire a new employee to carry out your new program, that is a direct cost of the grant process. And so that individual's salary that you need to hire to do your new program can be funded at 100% through One Ohio. However, if you have maybe in this example, maybe you already have an HR person and that HR person needs to spend some of their time identifying that new person, that cost is capped at 10%. We can't provide funds for that HR employee to hire the new person, both of those at 100%. It's really focused on those employees that are doing the direct service or the direct program services, whatever those services may be. And so we will be taking a look at those. And there's more information. If you read that RFP, it gives a couple examples. There were some questions about the regional funding formula, the regional allocation formula. That regional allocation formula is straight from the settlement agreement documents, derived from the local government attorneys that created the MOU. And so we applied that same formula here. It is not a formula that we created in this process. I think, Laura, you may have hit on this, and I just want to hit it again. There were a couple questions about when will we know that we were awarded. One thing that I'll say is all of our meetings are public. So you'll hear us going through this process over the next several meetings, and you'll know kind of and understand from those meetings what regions are up for approval. As Laura said, and Sarah may have said, these are going to be rolling approvals. And so as soon as a region is ready to review and they have their grant committee selected, they will receive a package from the foundation. They may receive a package of 10 applications. They may receive a package of 90 applications. It just depends on the region. And based on that, it may take them a little bit more time in one region versus another. And so once we get that package over to them, they will start their review process. Then it goes to the expert panel and to the board. The earliest we estimate that we will see funding announcements for this round is June or July. Likely July is kind of where we are in terms of giving everybody enough time to review. I want to speak a little bit about supplantation and really that emphasis that we have in our application and in our RFP around not reimbursing yourself or using funds that you already, having our funds replace funds that you're already receiving for a service. And so if you already have purchased a building or are operating a program, that purchase of the building, if it happens before our grant cycle, cannot be reimbursed. That program and those services, unless they are enhanced, let's just say you had a program that was painting all houses pink, and I'm totally making this up. We can't fund painting more houses pink. But if you determine, and it's evidence-based to work, that if you paint the house pink and add a patio, and I'm really going into a random example here because it really depends on the application. And it's evidence to work that if you add a patio, folks are more happy. Then that patio addition is where we come in. And so hopefully that's an analogy that can be translated in whatever field you're in. I know that these situations and scenarios are different. Make your best case in our application, and our regions will be responding to that. And speaking of making your best case, there are some questions around the abatement strategies themselves. And should I pick this bucket or that bucket? There's no wrong answer to which bucket you pick. It really helps us on the back end sort our applications and really get a feel for what types of abatement strategies folks are focusing on. But all that said, I would definitely take your best guess, informed by what region you're applying to make sure that you put your best foot forward when it comes to the abatement strategy that best describes your program. I think that takes just some of that, some of your own kind of gut feelings of what your understanding of your program is, and then you can select that bucket from there. But there are no wrong answers as it relates to that. And I also understand that some programs are kind of getting to another question. Some programs could fit in multiple buckets. Again, you just pick one and put your best foot forward for that region and that bucket. Now, if you have two different types of programs, maybe you have a recovery house, again, making this up, and that really falls under recovery supports, that you're trying to, hire a peer supporter or someone to kind of work in that program and expand that program in some cases. And then another project you're working on is completely different than that. Maybe you're doing a syringe exchange program or a harm reduction program that, really doesn't, match with the work that you're doing over in your recovery house. Those are two different applications in the same region, and that is allowable. Or it could be two different applications and you do the recovery house in this region and the syringe exchange, harm reduction program, whatever it is, in that region. Those two things are two different applications. You really don't want to fit two different concepts into one application. And one of the reasons for that is there's word limitations. And I saw some questions about word limitations and character limitations. There are those in this grant application. So you probably wouldn't be able to explain both programs well if you're limited to 3,000 characters on a certain question. And so on our website, there is a PDF of all of the application questions that we went through. So you could see them. Maybe think about them as a group, talk about them as a group before you go live and enter that information into the portal. It will share with you those questions, and I believe it may even share some of the character limits. But if not there's certainly character limit details in the portal so you can get that information. I think I'm at my last question that I've got to so far in the portal. I think there's been some more that have been added, and I know that the team is trying to answer as many questions to typing, so check those out as well. But what I will say as I look at my list here, there was a question about the grant period. And so we've been talking about grants will be awarded on a rolling basis. Based off of how many applications come in for a region. Some may take shorter periods of time, some may take a longer period of time. But I think in general, once we get the application approved by our board, we will start the process of a grant agreement. And in that grant agreement, We will talk through payment structure. We'll talk through reporting requirements, and that will kick off your period of time. And so whatever that date is, or whenever we kind of finalize that agreement, that's when your 12-month, 24-month, 36-month discussions will, or, time period would start. The other question that was kind of related to this is, what if a region doesn't fund my full proposal? Maybe I asked for 500,000 and they only approve, or suggesting to approve 250,000. In those cases, you will hear from the foundation team that is on the line today, and we will give you a call in between those meetings to say, hey, it looks like there's some interest in your grant application. Would you be able to complete this project based off of a $250,000 request? Yes or no, or would you be interested? If you're interested and able, you would just need to go back into our grant portal and adjust your proposal to better align with the 250,000 as needed, as that impacts your program or project. So we'll be working with you on that. That scenario can happen. So you can ask for 500,000 and get 250. You can ask for 10,000 and get 5,000. You can't ask for $1 million and get, 500,000. All of those scenarios are possible. You also could get your full funding request. So those things will be discussed on a case-by-case basis. All right, I'm going now live into the question and answer portal. Glad that folks found humor in my example, that there goes my pink house idea. Thank you for that. Just looking at some of the other questions. Sarah, Laura, do you have any that you want to comment on as I look at some more of these?
I believe we already covered it, but I just want to hit it again because we had a lot of people ask. The questions for the application are available on our website in PDF form. If you want to look at them and collaborate outside of the grant portal, that does contain the word limitations. So lots of people were asking that. So yes, the questions are available on our website, and you can also print blank the application from within the portal itself.
The other thing I'd like to touch on is the grants page of the foundation website. OneOhioFoundation.com includes not only the RFP, but a pretty robust FAQ document, as well as a funding priorities document that includes definitions of all of the abatement strategies. And those abatement strategies are what the regions used to pick their funding priorities. So those are interchangeable terms. They're the same things. And we include not only definitions of them, but examples of them. Like I know some folks asked about training. Is training allowable? Absolutely. It is listed under each abatement strategy, because you could be training on a whole bunch of different things. And, I know some of your stuff might fall into multiple things. Do your best to, put it in one, or maybe it truly is two. I know there were some questions about, kind of which region do I pick? Do your best to pick one, and then make that application specific to the region you're applying to, and be tailored to the area, the demographics, all of that, because it is each regional grant review committee that is reviewing these. So those are a few things I wanted to call out.
We had a question of, are the grants renewable? So this funding cycle, you want to, beyond this funding cycle, our future cycles may look very different. So we wouldn't consider if you get awarded a grant, I wouldn't consider that specific grant renewable, but we will have future opportunities and additional opportunities for you to apply for funding. But again, those cycles may look different. And there was also a question about the amounts of future funding cycles, and that information is still to be determined. So please just, keep an eye on our website for announcements about future funding cycles.
Saw a series of questions around nonprofits, and I want to make sure we touch on that in our eligibility, it states tax exempt organizations under 501c3 or other relevant sections of Internal Revenue Service Code. So all types of nonprofits are eligible in this process. So if you're a faith institution or another type of nonprofit, you are included in this round. The other,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
go ahead, Laura.
I was just going to actually ask Alicia if you could touch on, there's several questions about salaries and, what's considered appropriate and what falls under that 10% cap. Could you give a little more information about that?
Certainly. So again, we've talked about those new employees. I think I'm starting to see some of the questions Laura may be hinting to here around maybe supervisors of those employees and things of that nature. I would say that you could, you would definitely need to, on a case-by-case basis, understand what you're asking for and do your best estimation based on this. So when I say that, what I mean is, let's just say I need a new employee that has to have a supervisor review their work. If that supervisor is 100% dedicated to that new program, that new project, and they're supervising multiple people. Again, I'm making this up. I could, liken it back to my pink house example, because I know some of this isn't how it works in the real world, but it, depending on the certification and all the things. But if that person is overseeing all of the people that are in that program and that's their primary role, of course, they would be a part of that direct service. If they are supervising that person as a percentage of their time and they're doing other programs and projects not related to the project that you're applying to, you would just need to understand that difference to determine whether that is a direct or indirect cost. And I would say that would probably be closer to an indirect cost for that staff member, but make your case and we will be reviewing those as they come in. I think there's some questions here around salaries and fringe too. And so the total cost of an employee for a direct cost, an employee related to a program is allowable. So that would include fringe benefits related to that employee. Whether we do not, I don't believe we mentioned that federal cap. So I want to go back to our team on that one, our board on that one. But at this point, I don't believe we mentioned the federal cap. But it's a good guide to go by. So at or below that federal cap, I think would be reasonable. I think grant reviewers may think otherwise if it's too much higher than that. Or think otherwise, may not think that that's reasonable if it's, a lot of folks are used to that 35%. I'm just looking through any other questions or themes of questions that we haven't touched on. I know they're still coming in.
I'll just clarify that if you are applying for a 3-year grant, your total request should be for the total requested amount should be for the full 3 years. And that amount will come from the budget for the region this year. So it's not going to come out of future cycles. That full 3-year amount is going to come out of this year's available budget.
Specific questions around maybe what's considered what in the budget, please send those in. I don't have that information with us, and our finance manager is not with us on this call today, but there are descriptions and information built within the application that may guide some of that or some of those questions. And then if not, please reach out to us at apply@oneohiofoundation.com. We will include a response to that, and most importantly, put that response on our frequently asked questions. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention that on our website right now, there is a running list of multiple pages of questions that have come in from organizations like you who have worked with us, and we have posted the responses to those questions for everyone's benefit on our website. And so we are updating that on a weekly basis at minimum. As they come in quicker now that the application is live, we're doing it as fast as we can. And that information is available on our website, along with a number of other resources. Okay. Well, thank you all. I'm not seeing any new questions at this time, but we are delighted to have you thinking about partnering with us. We know we won't be able to fund everyone in this first grant round, but know that we will be having future opportunities, and we'll continue to be working with you at least for the next 18 years. So we're excited to be here and hopeful for our partnership. If you have questions for us in the future, please apply, use that resource, apply@oneohiofoundation.com. Remember that Monday at 9 a.m. is our training around meeting that evidence-based requirement. That is a webinar. You can register now. Seats are still available. If you miss it, it will be up on the website as well for you to watch, just as this recording will be available as well. So have a good weekend. We look forward to connecting with you soon, and we'll stop the training here.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.